All right, in this video, I wanted to show you how we are going to use Respondus Lockdown Browser in this class. So if you've never taken a class that uses Lockdown Browser, or even if you have in the past, I want you to watch this just so we're clear on what's expected of you and the steps that you have to take whenever we use this for test. I've taught online courses for years now, and by far the one place where I see issues come up is during exams when we're using this. Some students, maybe you've never taken a class that uses this before and you're kind of intimidated and you don't know what to expect. So this will help you out with that, just kind of ease your mind. And then the practice exam that we're going to do, that's another chance just to get familiar with this before the real test comes. Another issue I have with this is, honestly, I'll have students who, they're honest with me, but they're just like blatantly cheating, like no denying it. Phone is out, and they're flipping through their notes during the test. And if that happens, if I catch you cheating, you get a 0. Just that was in the syllabus, but just to be clear on there, you get a 0. We don't have that many tests in this class, so if you get a 0 on one of them, that's going to be a problem. But they'll be honest with me. They'll say, yes, I was cheating, I'm sorry. And then they'll say, but I've taken online classes in the past and instructors never checked them. Like the videos when you take the exam. Just give you a heads up, in the science department, I know that I've heard that enough that in other places, but in the science department, I know that we do check these exams. So just because this is an online class doesn't mean you don't have to really learn the material. And listen, just a really important side note in here. If you're in anatomy, there's a really strong chance that you're going into some type of a medical program where you're going to have to apply. And one of the things that determines if you get in that program or not is your score in classes like this, in anatomy and micro and in things like that. So I have an issue with cheating anyway, like it's a pet peeve, I guess, but in anatomy classes, I do not mess around with cheating. Do not do that, because think of it this way. If you're trying to get into nursing school, for example, one of the things they're going to look at is your grade in this class. Let's say you didn't cheat. Let's say you did it the right way, you finished, and you worked hard and you made a B. Like you did everything right, you put the effort into it, and you finished this class with a B. Let's say there's another student that made an A because they cheated. They didn't learn the material, but they made an A, and they jump in front of you and they end up getting into the nursing program when you don't. That's, like I said, that's why I take it serious in this class. So, all right, there's my soapbox. Sorry about that. But let's just make sure we know how to follow these steps. And again, don't cheat, because that if the closest I can get to being angry for another student is to think that someone got into a nursing program that they didn't actually earn and someone else was left out when they should have. All right, so let's go finally. There's the video that you're watching right now. When you click here, it has instructions. This is just a Word document that's got a little bit more detail as far as what we're going to cover in this video, but it has a link to download the Lockdown Browser. Tells you kind of what's going to happen when you install it. So Lockdown Browser, if you're not familiar with it, it's just a web browser like Google Chrome or Firefox, but it's made specifically for taking online tests. It's going to keep you from opening up any other programs when you're taking the test. And then it uses something called Monitor, which is basically a webcam that you're going to use to record your environment, and it's going to record you during the test. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. But read through this document. It tells you some tips and information. Make sure that you're plugged into a power source so that your battery doesn't die in the middle of the test. There was a link in those instructions, but here's another link to download Respondus Lockdown Browser. If you have used this before, but it was from a different college, you're going to need to reinstall Lockdown Browser, because these are specific to the different colleges. So like if you took a class at Sneed and you used the Lockdown Browser, if you use that same browser, it's going to take you to Sneed, not to Gadsden State. And then here's the practice exam. Now, just another thing real quick. You have to use the Lockdown Browser to take exams. If you don't, if I'm in Firefox right now, if I tried to open up a test, it's going to tell me all the information. You have 5 minutes to take the test. These are timed. You're going to have more than enough time, so don't let that stress you out. But it'll tell you the information, the due date. And when you click begin, well, all right, because I'm the instructor, it let me. But what's going to happen to you, if you click begin, it's going to ask you for a password. Lockdown Browser automatically fills in that password. So if you're ever asked for a password, that means you're not using the Lockdown Browser. So you need to make sure that you are using that for any of the tests. All right, let me show you what's going to happen when you're logged into Lockdown Browser and you take the exam. First off, when you install it onto your computer, if you have a PC, it's going to make an icon on your desktop, or you can find it in Programs. If you're using Mac, if you go to your Launchpad, you'll find Lockdown Browser there. All right, so when you log in, it's going to give you a terms of use, just a legal agreement you have to sign. It's going to make sure that your webcam is working and that your microphone is working. And then it tells you some additional instructions. So you cannot use phone, tablet, anything like that. If interruption occurs, just let me know, like look into the camera and say what the issue is. If possible, make sure that you finish the test. Because if you, like, let's say someone rings your doorbell, that can happen. That's fine. I'm not going to get on you because someone rang your doorbell. But if you like cut the exam off to go answer it, it's going to submit it, and you won't be able to start off. You won't be able to finish the exam because it's already submitted it for grading. So if something like that happened, just kind of briefly explain into the webcam what's going on. It'll give you some guidelines and tips. And then it'll ask for a student photo. So just look into the webcam, click, take photo or whatever it says. And then next, it will ask for a student ID. So you can either use your Gadsden State ID or a driver's license, just some type of a photo ID to show that you are who you say you are. We do this like in our hybrid classes too. If you just show up to take tests, anytime you're not consistently coming, we have to check you are who you say you are. And then lastly, it's going to, or not lastly, but next it's going to ask you to do an environment check. So here's the instructions on that environment check, and it will remind you every time you do this. Clear your environment of all materials, so phone, books, notes, anything like that. Basically, you need to be at a desk or a table and clear everything off. This is the equivalent of, if you were in a traditional class before we gave a test, we would say clear your desk. So that's all we're doing. We're saying remove everything from your surroundings. You're going to record your desk or table surface in front of you. So I know that can be kind of tricky if you've got an external webcam, or like if it's built into your computer, the webcam is. But you'll just point the webcam to the surface in front of you, and then you're going to do a quick 360 of your environment just to show everything that's around you. When you're done with that video, it'll give you a chance to review it. So like if it was pointed off in the wrong direction and you didn't see what you were supposed to, you'll get a chance to retake the environment video. And then lastly, number 3, this is a big one. Once you have finished your environment video, do not add or change anything to your surroundings. So obviously, it doesn't do us any good to show your desk or table if you start adding stuff after the video. Like, that's not what we wanted to see. And then the other thing, just if you've made it this far in the video, here's your warning. It will continue to record you after your environment video. I've had students do a perfect video, nothing is around, and then as soon as it's over, they go into their drawers and they start like pulling out notes and their phone and PowerPoints. If you do that, if you add anything to your environment after the video, then you will not get credit for your exam. Okay, so here's something about like an idea for what that video can look like. All right, so you will just show your desk or table surface. And again, this is just like if you were in a classroom, you'd have to clear your desk off. Show your environment. Parenting pro tip: buying your 2-year-old a drum set is just an awful idea. All right, quick 360. Your environment. And you're done. All right, so it doesn't have to be anything big, and you can narrate if you want to, but just kind of show your environment. And then, like I said, when you're done, it's going to ask you to review that video. Don't skip through that. Watch it, make sure that you've done everything you were supposed to. Finally, it will give you a few additional instructions. So like I said, you can't access anything during the exam. Stay seated where you're at. Look at the webcam, look at your computer. This is the online version of like eyes on your own paper. You need to be looking at the computer because Respondus, it doesn't work great, but it's going to track facial recognition. And that sounds weird, facial detection, just to make sure that it can see you That means that the lights are going to need to be on in the room. And it's going to make sure you're looking at the computer. So like if you're looking way down, or if you're hiding your face, or if you point the webcam away from you during the test, it's going to flag that. And it's going to let me know there were some issues. All right. I'm going to review all the videos anyway, but if there's flags, I'm going to look into a lot more detail. So just make sure that you are focused on the computer when you take the test. Again, I'm sorry, I don't like doing this either. This is my least favorite part of teaching online classes, is having to go through and review these and feel like I'm trying to be suspicious. I promise I'm not trying, like I don't review these saying, man, who can I catch cheating today? But like I said, for the reasons I said earlier, in this class, you're using your grade to try to get into a program. So yeah, I'm going to make sure that you actually earned the score that you got on that test. All right. Okay, so I think that's about got it. If you have any questions, let me know. Just once you've done all those steps, once you have downloaded the Lockdown browser, just make sure that you take the practice exam. And then that's going to be due, you can see the due date on there. As soon as the due date passes, I will review the videos. And if there were any issues, I'm going to send you a message and say, you know, hey, you didn't show your environment, or you didn't have your student ID. Just check your messages after the due date, and if there's any issues, I'll send you a message, and you might have to redo it to get your points for the practice exam. Like I said, this is just to make sure we understand what we need to do beforehand. I would much rather have a misunderstanding now than to have one on the real test in the future when there's 100 points on the line. All right, so like I said, that's it. If you have any questions about anything in here, let me know, and I'll be glad to help.